She had always been a dreamer. The kind of person who saw the world not just for what it was, but for what it could be. By day, she pushed her mop through the long, echoing hallways of a massive corporate building, her sneakers squeaking softly against the polished marble floors. The scent of bleach and the distant hum of fluorescent lights were her constant companions. She knew every corner of that place, the quiet whispers of colleagues in glass-walled conference rooms, the clinking of coffee cups as executives discussed deals that would never include someone like her. She felt invisible, a ghost in the very building she helped keep spotless. But her mind was alive, racing with ideas as she cleaned office after office, her thoughts never resting even as her body grew tired. Every day, she watched the sharply dressed professionals breeze past her without a second glance. She wondered what it would be like to sit at one of those desks, to feel the cool leather of a high-backed chair beneath her, to have her voice matter. She had her share of struggles, being a lesbian in a world that still carried its prejudices, coming from a family that had never quite understood her, and fighting the quiet, ever-present doubt that whispered she was aiming too high. Yet, even in those darkest moments, when her reflection in the polished glass seemed like a stranger, she clung to her dreams with a ferocity that surprised even her. One night, while scrubbing the baseboards of the CEO's office, she noticed something, a forgotten notebook, left open on the polished mahogany desk. It was filled with notes, rough sketches of business plans, ideas scribbled in the margins. She paused, her rag hanging limp in her hand, eyes scanning the words. Market trends, investment strategies, innovative tech solutions, it was a glimpse into a world she had only dreamed of. Her heart raced, the echoes of her mop forgotten as she absorbed the raw ambition captured in those pages. It struck her then, a moment of clarity so sharp it almost made her laugh. Why not her? Why should the people who ignored her each day be the only ones allowed to dream big? She shut the notebook quickly, glancing nervously at the security cameras in the corner. But the spark had been lit, and as she pushed her cart down the hallway, the wheels creaking softly against the tile, her mind buzzed with possibilities. She had an idea, a seed of something that could be bigger than anything she'd dared to imagine. As she swiped her access card at the exit door that night, the city lights flickering against the darkened skyline, she felt a flicker of hope. It was a small thing, fragile and trembling, but it was hers. She would not let it go. As the days passed, the idea she had stumbled upon in that CEO's office grew, like a tiny spark catching dry kindling. She started spending her breaks in the corner of the janitor's closet, her phone screen glowing as she researched market trends, startup strategies, and success stories of those who had come from nothing. It felt like discovering a hidden world, a place where her dreams could live if she was brave enough to chase them. She found herself jotting notes on scraps of paper, her phone's notepad filled with late-night thoughts whispered into the dark. It was a lonely pursuit. She couldn't share her ambitions with her coworkers, the ones who only saw her as another cleaning hand, another set of tired eyes clocking in and out every day. She kept her plans hidden, a secret rebellion against the life she had accepted for too long. She didn't have a business degree, no fancy internships to pad her resume, just an endless stream of YouTube tutorials and free online courses taken in stolen moments. But she had something that so many of those polished executives lacked. Grit, a fierce drive that burned brighter each time she scrubbed a stain or polished a mirror. One night, as she emptied trash bins in a conference room, she overheard a group of young interns chatting. They spoke casually of startups, venture capital, and seed funding, words that had become familiar to her but still felt foreign on her tongue. She lingered longer than usual, her hands moving slowly as she cleaned the edges of the glass table, her ears straining to catch every word. They spoke about the power of technology, the future of clean energy, and the potential for massive returns on small investments. She could feel her heart racing, her mind spinning with possibilities. She didn't have their connections, but she had the fire, the raw hunger to prove herself. That night, as she pushed her cart down the empty hallway, her thoughts raced faster than ever. She began to sketch out her business plan, writing furiously in a dollar store notebook she had tucked into her janitor's cart. She outlined her concept, mapped her potential market, and listed the challenges she might face. She was exhausted by the time she got home, her body aching, but her spirit alive in a way it hadn't been in years. She started waking up 2 hours earlier each morning, trading precious sleep for time at the local library, where the internet was free and the silence absolute. She pored over case studies, financial projections, and marketing strategies. Her mind, once dulled by the monotony of routine, came alive as she began piecing together the first threads of her business. It was a grind, balancing the demands of her day job with the relentless drive to build something of her own. She skipped lunches to squeeze in more research, her eyes growing bloodshot as the nights stretched longer. She had no safety net, no wealthy parents to catch her if she fell, just a worn-out pair of sneakers and a heart full of ambition. And yet, with each passing day, the dream felt a little more real. She could almost see it, her vision taking shape in the small hours of the morning, her empire born in the shadows of the very building where she mopped floors by day. The first small victory came when she landed her first client. It wasn't much, a local cafe looking to revamp their branding and streamline their operations. She had pitched the idea over a hurried, coffee-stained email she had drafted between shifts, her heart pounding as she hit send. She didn't expect a reply, but 2 days later, she found herself sitting across from the cafe owner, her nerves masked by a forced, confident smile. She spoke quickly, words tumbling out in a rush, her palms sweating beneath the table. She outlined her ideas for digital marketing, social media growth, and cost-saving strategies. She had no formal training, just a head full of late-night research and a fierce determination not to be overlooked. The owner, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a tired smile, listened intently. When she finally nodded and agreed to a trial run, it felt like the world had cracked open a little, letting in a sliver of light. That night, as she scrubbed the stubborn stains in the lobby of the office building, her mind buzzed with a new kind of energy. She wasn't just mopping floors anymore. She was a business owner, even if it was just on paper for now. She poured every spare moment into the project, learning to build websites from scratch, mastering the art of social media algorithms, and teaching herself graphic design through free tutorials and online forums. The cafe's Instagram followers began to grow, their daily foot traffic increased, and their brand took on a sharper, more modern edge. She felt a deep, almost dizzying pride each time the cafe owner messaged her with another small success, a reminder that her efforts were making a real impact. But as her side business slowly took off, the demands on her time grew relentless. She found herself racing against the clock, her days a blur of mopping floors and crafting social media campaigns, her nights spent tweaking ad copy and analyzing website analytics. The exhaustion was constant, a dull ache behind her eyes and a tightness in her chest that never fully relaxed. Yet, even in the haze of sleep deprivation and stress, she felt a fierce, unshakable purpose. She started taking on more clients, a small boutique, a local gym, a startup app looking for brand awareness. She juggled their needs with the same precision she used to stack her mop buckets, carefully balancing her growing portfolio against the demands of her janitorial job. She found herself skipping breaks, eating lunch hunched over her laptop in the corner of the break room, her fingers tapping out marketing plans as the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. She was no longer just a janitor with a dream. She was building something real, piece by piece, client by client, her empire growing in the shadows of the very building where she still pushed her mop every night. But as her business grew, so did the risks. She had little room for error. One misstep, one unhappy client, and the fragile foundation she had built could crumble. Yet, the fear only fueled her, pushing her to work harder, to learn faster, to stay one step ahead. She was no longer simply surviving. She was rising, her dreams no longer confined to the whispered fantasies of a woman scrubbing floors in an empty hallway. As her business picked up, the pressure mounted. She was barely sleeping, her nights consumed by spreadsheets and marketing plans, her days spent pushing a mop through endless hallways. The lines between her two worlds blurred, her once quiet, unnoticed presence in the office building now crackling with a secret energy. She found herself whispering quick calls with clients in stairwells, scribbling ideas on the back of discarded memos, and replying to urgent emails from the shadows of empty conference rooms. But with each small victory came new challenges. One of her earliest clients, the cafe owner who had given her a chance, suddenly hit a rough patch. Sales dropped, foot traffic slowed, and her carefully crafted campaigns seemed to lose their spark. The messages that once brought praise now carried a hint of panic, the familiar fear of failure seeping into her late-night work sessions. She felt the pressure mounting, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her thin shoulders as she scrubbed the edges of marble floors. She was terrified of letting people down, of watching her fledgling business crumble before it even had the chance to take off. One night, as she was cleaning a high-rise corner office with a sweeping view of the city skyline, she caught a glimpse of herself reflected in the glass. Dark circles framed her eyes, her face pale and drawn beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. She looked every bit the tired janitor she had always been, but her mind burned with the dreams of an entrepreneur. She gripped her mop tighter, her jaw clenched against the fear that threatened to choke her. She needed a breakthrough, a way to scale her business without breaking herself in the process. She spent her lunch breaks studying automation, learning about software that could handle the repetitive tasks that were eating up her precious time. She dove deep into digital marketing strategies, teaching herself about analytics, SEO, and customer retention. She pushed her limits, waking earlier, working later, her life a blur of deadlines and disinfectant fumes. Then, one night, a chance encounter changed everything. She was mopping the lobby when a late working executive paused by the coffee machine, his phone pressed to his ear. She couldn't help but overhear snippets of his conversation, something about a new startup, a major investment, and the need for a fresh marketing approach. Her heart pounded as she waited for him to hang up, her mind racing. She took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly as she approached him. She had never done this before, never crossed the line between janitor and entrepreneur so boldly. She cleared her throat, her voice surprisingly steady as she introduced herself. She pitched her services in a quick, breathless rush, the words tumbling out before she could second-guess herself. He raised an eyebrow, his eyes flicking over her wrinkled uniform and scuffed shoes, but he didn't brush her off. He asked a few sharp, pointed questions, his tone skeptical but not dismissive. She answered each one, her voice growing stronger with every word, the fear melting into adrenaline. By the time he walked away, his business card clutched in her trembling hand, she felt a spark of hope she hadn't dared to touch in weeks. She rushed home that night, her mind racing with possibilities. She had taken a risk, stepped out from the shadows, and for the first time, she felt like a real entrepreneur, not just a janitor with a side hustle. She could almost see it now, her empire slowly taking shape, her dreams no longer just whispers in the dark. The call came late one evening, just as she was about to pull on her worn sneakers for another long night of scrubbing floors. It was the executive she had nervously pitched to in the lobby weeks before. She fumbled with her phone, nearly dropping it in her haste to answer. His voice was brisk, businesslike, cutting straight to the point. He had a project, a new tech startup looking to break into a crowded market, and they needed fresh, aggressive marketing to make a splash. He had remembered her pitch, her intensity, and for reasons she couldn't quite grasp, he had decided to give her a shot. The terms were rough, a tight deadline, high expectations, and no room for error. But the potential payout was more than she had ever dared to dream of. She took the gig without a second thought, her mind already racing with strategies and campaign ideas. She hung up, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the street noise outside her tiny apartment. She felt a mix of terror and exhilaration, the weight of this opportunity pressing down on her like a heavy, electrified blanket. This was her chance, the break she had been grinding toward in stolen moments and midnight work sessions. But with that chance came the very real fear of failure. She dove into the project, her life becoming a chaotic blur of market research, ad copy drafts, and social media mock-ups. She worked through her breaks, ate standing up, and carried her laptop to work, answering client emails from the janitor's closet while her coworkers swapped gossip in the hallway. She felt the pressure of every ticking second, the stakes higher than they had ever been. She knew that if this project failed, it wouldn't just be her side hustle collapsing, it would be the death of a dream she had clung to with bloodied, calloused fingers. As the days blurred into nights, she found herself struggling to keep up. Her phone buzzed constantly, each new message a reminder of the high expectations she had set for herself. The startup's founders were demanding, their emails sharp, their questions relentless. She felt herself fraying at the edges, her carefully constructed world threatening to unravel. Then, just when she thought she might crack under the pressure, a message came through that made her heart skip a beat. The executive, the one who had given her this chance, forwarded a note from one of the startup's co-founders. It was a brief, blunt message, but it held the words she had been desperately hoping to see: impressive results. Keep pushing. She read those words over and over, her tired brain struggling to process them. She had done it. She had broken through, made her mark, proven herself in a world that had never intended to make space for someone like her. She felt a fierce, tear-pricking pride in that moment, a small but powerful vindication for every sleepless night, every nervous pitch, every whispered dream. And as she put her phone down and picked up her mop, she did so with a new fire in her heart. She was no longer just a janitor with a side hustle. She was a businesswoman, a builder of empires, a woman who had finally begun to carve out her place in the world. As the weeks turned into months, her business grew faster than she had ever imagined. The startup she had poured her soul into took off, its name spreading through tech blogs and social media like wildfire. Her strategies worked, the brand's presence exploding as her digital campaigns caught fire. She found herself hiring freelancers, building a small but passionate team that shared her relentless drive. The janitor's closet where she once whispered late-night pitches became her unofficial office, the glow of her laptop screen casting long shadows against the mop buckets and stacked paper towels. She was living two lives, scrubbing floors by night, building a digital empire by day, her body exhausted but her spirit burning brighter than ever. But as her business grew, she found herself at a crossroads. She could no longer juggle both worlds. The demands of her growing client list pulled her in one direction, while the steady, if soul-crushing, paycheck of her janitorial job held her back. The fear of letting go, of fully committing to her dream, clawed at her in those quiet, lonely moments as she mopped endless hallways. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground beneath her crumbling as she peered into the unknown. Then came the day she had both dreamed of and feared, the day she quit her job. She walked into the manager's office, her head held high, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear her own words. She handed over her ID badge, her uniform, the tools that had defined her for so long. She walked out of that building for the last time, the city lights reflecting off the glass doors as they swung shut behind her. She felt the weight of her old life slip from her shoulders, replaced by a heady, terrifying freedom. She had done it. She had taken the leap. Her business continued to thrive, her client list expanding as word of her skills spread through startup circles and entrepreneur networks. She moved into a tiny office space, her laptop resting on a second-hand desk she had hauled up 4 flights of stairs herself. She worked longer hours than ever before, but this time, every minute felt like a step toward something bigger. She found herself speaking at small business events, her once trembling voice now strong and sure as she shared her journey, the struggles, the sleepless nights, the quiet moments of despair and triumph. She became a mentor, a symbol of resilience and ambition for those who, like her, had once been overlooked, their potential hidden behind tired eyes and calloused hands. And as the years passed, her business grew into something far bigger than she had ever dared to dream. She became a silent force in the industry, a name whispered in boardrooms and startup incubators, her influence stretching far beyond the walls she once cleaned. She never forgot where she came from, the dusty hallways and echoing stairwells that had shaped her, the long nights when her only company had been the quiet hum of fluorescent lights. She used her success to give back, funding scholarships for underrepresented entrepreneurs, mentoring young women who dreamed of breaking free from their own quiet corners. And as she sat at the polished glass desk of her high-rise office, her reflection a reminder of the janitor she had once been, she allowed herself a rare moment of stillness. She had built an empire from the shadows, turned whispered dreams into concrete reality. She had proven that even the smallest sparks, the quietest voices, can ignite a revolution. And as she looked out over the city, the lights stretching far into the distance, she smiled. Because she had made it. She had risen, and she would never be invisible again. Thank you for watching this story. If you found it inspiring, please like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. And remember, no dream is too big, no background too humble. Chase your dreams, and don't stop until you make them real.